Hi, everyone. What you don't know about those low-budget horror movies was that they were shot in Ireland, and the female cast were all Playboy models. I kid you not. Imagine a 20-year-old Irishman from the country, and my first job on a movie set involved lots of Playboy models in a movie set. It's quite an experience, but there was one drawback. It was very poorly paid, and I didn't see a huge future in it, so I moved on and ultimately ended up in the recruitment world. So look, I'm going to talk about how to recruit like a sourcing ninja. We turn recruiters into sourcing ninjas. Can everybody hear me, by the way? I know there's a bit of noise down the back, but everybody hear me? Yeah? Okay. Tell me to shout if you want. I'm quite softly spoken, so I'm doing my best. So look, we train recruiters and we make them more efficient. We transform them from people who use the web inefficiently into these super users. And if you think about, my mother has become an internet user of late. She plays Scrabble with 30 to 40 people online every night at the same time. She's a freak. And she searches the web, but I know for a fact that she doesn't do it very efficiently. And I know for a fact, based on our research, that most recruiters don't use the web very efficiently. So our aim in life is to make them more efficient. So I'll skip on here, but so I'll just quickly tell you a little bit about Social Talent. I'm not going to sell to you, but just who we are and what we do. So we started actually as a small recruitment agency back in July 2008. Johnny Campbell. Does anybody ever heard of Johnny Campbell? Few hands. So Johnny's our rock star. Johnny's our Bono. I'm probably Larry Mullen, or else somebody further back behind the band. So I kind of run our business, and Johnny is the one who goes out and talks the talk and presents usually at events. But you're stuck with me here today, so hopefully I'll do okay. But so typically we have customers scattered around the world, lots of large corporates, lots of large agencies, but also some individuals and some small one-man bands or one-woman bands. But Johnny sold me a bit of a lie. He said in July 2008 that we would make millions from having a small boutique recruitment agency, and we would be feeding candidates into the Caribbean market of the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, which is where we had both been living up till that point. And we set up in July 2008, and about to do more the normal traditional way of recruitment, which is Johnny had been doing for years, and I came from a sales background. One thing happened in September 2008. Anybody know? No? The crisis, yeah. So Lehman Brothers fell off a cliff, and the world fell with it in September 2008. So all those simple to fill jobs that we were going to fill suddenly evaporated, and there was no jobs. I had given up my job to do this wild, crazy idea with Johnny, and I had mouths to feed, and we needed to do things differently. So we were forced. We couldn't advertise. The only jobs that these financial services companies were now recruiting for were actuaries and very, very hard to fill positions. So we had to devour the web and learn how do you actually find these candidates, because they're not going to respond to advertising. We don't even know who they are, where they are. How do you use the web efficiently? And because of the downward pressure on recruitment agency fees because of the crisis, we also had to do it very, very quickly to make it worth our while. So we were working usually about 4 jobs at a time, but putting a lot of man hours into finding these people. So the benefit of that is over time we developed this skill set, which we now train people on. And over time, more and more companies started to ask us, well, look, will you come and train our staff? So we thought, okay, there's something in this. So we decided to set up Social Talent, and eventually we ditched our recruitment agency. And since then, we've been growing nicely. So good story so far. So this is Lily. Lily is my daughter. I miss her because I've been away for about a week from home. But the reason I show her is that I'm teaching her how to ride a bike. By the way, her hands are not that big. They're my gloves. But I'm teaching her how to ride a bike, and she's got her stabilizers on. And the thing is, she will ultimately learn how to ride a bike. Will she ever compete in the Tour de France? I don't think so. And the thing about these guys is you don't see these guys going by on their bikes and say, Jesus, look at them. They can stay up on their bike. It's, that's not the skill. That's the basic, that's what my daughter will eventually be able to do. And I'll congratulate her, but we don't congratulate them for being able to stay upright on their bikes. But what we do congratulate and are amazed at is their ability to get up a mountain extremely efficiently, very quickly, and even they work in teams. They make the whole process very, very efficient. So we're aiming not for you guys to get up on the bike, we're aiming for you guys to be the best that you can be in terms of how you find candidates. Now, the thing is, the benefit of that is that not that you can do more of it, is that you can do less of it. We want to get you off the web and onto the phones. We want to get you in front of candidates, in front of clients. Being on the bike or being stuck in your keyboard, which most recruiters are, is a poor way of actually engaging and building relationships. So we got to work on getting you off the web. Counterintuitively for a training company that trains people on how to use it. So I'm going to look at some of the accepted norms at the moment in terms of how we recruit. Sorry, I'm very dehydrated. So based on JobVite's figures, they took massive data and they looked at, well, how many views of your job ad does it take in order for you to get one hire? And it's 500. That's a lot of eyeballs that have to hit your job ad in order to get one hire. We looked at, this is based on our surveys and also on some usage figures that we've taken from companies that we've trained. And outbound, how many people do you need to find in order to make one hire? And typically for a non-ninja, it's around 500 as well. And then how many hires a month should a perm technical recruiter make? Does anybody, what is the typical average in terms of, like, if you're an agency recruiter in the Czech Republic, what do you need to do in order not to hit your target or not be under pressure? Is there a magic number? What's the norm? Or even in-house, how many people are you hiring a month? Yuri? Okay, that's good. That's good. That's higher than UK and Ireland. How many? 3? Yeah. What we find on average, it's about 4, which is the kind of accepted norm, certainly in agencies in Ireland and the UK. If you're making 4 placements a month, you're probably doing okay. So what we want to do is, I want to look at how we challenge these numbers. How can we? If this is the norm, this is us riding the bike. How can we get to Tour de France standard? So I'm going to look at some of those. I'm going to start with this little man here, who's skinnier than me. He's about 9 stone 2 pounds. Does anybody follow the Freakonomics blogs or videos or their content online? Freakonomics? Okay, so my story hopefully will be new to you. But this is a guy called Takeru Kobayashi, and he has a unique skill. Despite his miniature size and his slim body, he has an amazing capacity to eat food quickly. Which is not normally a marketable skill or one that you can benefit hugely from. But in one country in the world, you can do very well out of it, because if you think about what country in the world appreciates large intake of food, any ideas? America. So young Kobayashi was in Japan winning these competitions and earning small amounts of money for his efforts. And he had an ambitious girlfriend who said, we got to get to the States. We're going to invest some money and get to the States. And they went to this competition, which is Nathan's famous hot dogs. This is a more recent photo, but he went back in, I can't remember the date, but he went along with his skill. And the record for the previous kind of 20 years or so had hovered in around, it had grown marginally from like 23 hot dogs to 24 hot dogs in 12 minutes. So you had to eat as many hot dogs as you could in 12 minutes. And the record was in around the 24, 25. And Kobayashi came along and ate 50 hot dogs in 12 minutes. And you think about, how is that possible? This guy who doesn't look like a big guy can eat 50 hot dogs in 12 minutes. And what he did was, he stood back and he looked at the problem. And if you think about the things that that you have to eat the hot dog. You can have as much sauce as you want. So if you need ketchup, fire ahead. You're allowed to drink water, but you've got your bun, your hot dog, and your water. Any ideas about what the bottleneck in that problem is? Because he looked at it and went, okay, everybody's trying to eat this hot dog as quickly as possible, but there's a bottleneck. Any ideas what that might be? The bun? Somebody say the bun? Yeah, it's the bun. Bread is hard to eat. So he could down the sausage in 2 seconds. That just went straight down. He'd lock his jaw open. This is a disgusting competition, by the way. But he'd lock his jaw open, down goes the hot dog, and everybody's happy. But the bun is a problem. And everybody else had the problem with the bun. And they were like drinking water, taking the bun. His idea was very simple. Down the hot dog, he got the bun, scrunched it into the water, and down it went. And he was able to double the record by this simple changing of how he did the job. So we want to look at, we're not going to maybe double everybody's efforts, but how can we look at every aspect of the recruitment process and the sourcing process and say, well, how can we re-engineer this and change it so that we get much higher returns? So I'm going to look at attraction. There was lots of talk about job advertising, and it is something that is I think certainly its effectiveness has declined for sure, and certainly it's more relevant to volume roles than it will be to kind of those hard to fill positions. But it still has a place in the world. I think in 2004 there was a US survey of 1,000 people who got their jobs and how they got them, and 48% had either applied to a job board or to a corporate website. So people still applied to jobs. I just think we don't advertise particularly well. I'm going to just go through some of the ways we think you can improve on that. So here's what JobVite tell us in terms of what the numbers are. So so basically for your 500 website visitors, you'll get 50 who actually click the apply button, 40 applicants, and again, I agree with Greg that we should actually remove the word candidate because applicants is probably a better term. 4 get invited to interview and 1 gets offered. That's a 0.2% return on 500 users. Pretty poor. What we're looking to do is how can we change those metrics? Unfortunately, it creates more of an issue in that if we can improve your SEO and make the right people, the people who type in Java developer jobs or retail jobs in Brno. Sorry, I've gone too far. I'll tell you about that in a second. But we're looking at about altering, making sure that your jobs are found, first of all, but then making them more attractive for people to actually read, apply, and engage with you via advertising. This is, do you have Cadbury's chocolate here? Does anybody eat Cadbury's chocolate? No? Yeah, Cadbury's chocolate is fantastic. It's a really, really great chocolate. I love it. You have it in Australia and New Zealand. Yeah. I've been on a tour of the Cadbury's factory in some city in New Zealand randomly. But this is how the marketing department of Cadbury's catch you when you are at the checkout till. You're buying your groceries, and there's that purple bar there trying to catch your attention. And this is how they do it. They have a nice purple color for centuries. The color purple has been associated with royalty and kings and queens, so it's an attractive color. Prince also uses it, but they also give you this glass and a half of milk. So it makes you feel like, geez, it's actually healthy. This isn't a bad thing, it's healthy. They've crumbly bits of chocolate. It just feels nice. So this is their marketing department. And Greg talked earlier about, as recruiters, we now need to be more like marketers in our daily jobs. There's a lot to be done in terms of personal brand, employer brand, but also how we advertise. This is how the recruitment department would have advertised a bar of chocolate. Look familiar? Bullet points, all the bad things. You're going to have to come to work at 9 a.m. You're going to have to go home at 5. We have this, we have that. We tend to sell jobs like that. In fact, job advertising is a bit of a misnomer. We don't advertise jobs, we list job specs. That's typically how it works. And it's a rotten way to, it's not selling, it's dumping a load of information that probably has come from a line manager who didn't feel like writing it at the time and just put down all the, here are all the things you have to do and just come along, please apply. And it's a very ineffective way. And what ends up is that that funnel being very, very inefficient. So we want to look at, and sorry, I'm going to pick on somebody. This is a job in Brno. The company is blanked out, but still, this is your typical job spec. And one of the issues is that it focuses on the company's demands and the abilities that you have to bring in order to be right for the job. And there was a Canadian study which looked at, they took this type of job ad, and then they looked at another job ad, a second set of job ads, and what they did was they compared the results of the two. The second set looked at, here's the problem that we have as a company, and here's all the things that we will do to help you in order to make you fit in with our operation and make you an effective part of our company. The people that talked about the company's ability to help you as a candidate, the results were almost 3-to-1 in terms of the amount of people that applied. So this discourages people. For a start, it's a bit ugly, but also, I guarantee you when you click that apply button, it's going to take you kind of like 20-30 minutes to get through an application process. So we're looking at how can you make the application process easier. And if you think about a candidate as a customer rather than a candidate, it actually starts to make more sense. If you were selling to a customer, would you make them read through something as long as that and as boring as that? You just wouldn't do it. But if we think of somebody as a candidate, we treat them like cattle. We treat them like, look, it's up to you to impress us. But if they're your customer, well, we're going to go out of our way to make it an appealing advert. So a couple of things around that. Some of the messaging that you need to put into your job ads is we've taken from Made to Stick, which is the Heath brothers in the US, and they focus on what you can put in there, and very concrete ideas are very, very important. So we need to be human in how we communicate with our potential candidates. I don't know why it's happened, but everybody tends to talk in this corporate speak when you post a job ad. It's like it has to be very formal. You can't talk in a conversational tone, and you can't reveal things about the company that might actually be interesting. We've taken the human out of I was going to say human resources, but we've taken the human element out of these things and made them into corporate, horrible pieces of literature. So we look at how can you make things more intimate, reveal things about the company that might make somebody want to apply. So I'm going to read something which I wrote. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it does give you some indication of who we are. So this is from one of our job specs. We are 32 people, 24 in Dublin, 6 in Poland, and 2 lads, me and Walter, who live in Cork and refuse to move to Dublin. Our office is next door to a cool university on the tram line. We have a cool Smeg fridge, and our oldest plant's name is Harry. It's kind of ridiculous, but you know what? It gives a sense of who we are, and it does give you some information about our numbers, about where transport, the type of office. We're also so it gives you some sense of concrete feel of who we are. We also add images of our offices, and we also give tell everything in a colloquial way. So this is one of our job ads, which we filled from, I think we had about, we turned it off after about 10 to 15 applications because we knew we had found the right person. But that's all we needed in order to find the quality that we needed. We didn't need 500 because we got the right people applying. And one of the things that Bill Borman talks about, which is a guy in the UK, he talks about giving candidates enough information not to apply. That sounds kind of odd, but it's a valid point. You want to reveal enough so that if somebody wants to be in a very structured corporate environment, they're not going to apply for us. It's not going to fit them. So we give them enough information to say, look, we're a bit odd, we're a bit quirky, it's not a normal environment, so people will naturally move on. But we got massive response to this and a huge amount of sharing on social networks, and we ended up with the right person. But there's Harry, by the way, our longest surviving plant. So I won't labor on that too much more. But some companies will often say to us, though, yeah, you know what? I don't have control over this stuff. I don't have control over what I can post and what I can't post. There's very strict corporate guidelines. But what a lot of our customers do now, and if they're in that position, they start to create their own job ads and use them to post out on social networks. So they start to bring their own personality and their own and a sense of the company that maybe corporate doesn't allow, and push it out onto social networks. So this is for a company called Vend, and this is the type of ad that you see in a supermarket for babysitters or somebody to do your house cleaning. But it works. People like this stuff, and this got massive sharing on social networks. This is one of our clients in Dublin, and there's a girl called Jenny, and this is how she advertises her jobs. I'm not saying she doesn't do a normal, more traditional job spec, but this is what she pushes out on social networks. And it gives her a bit of a brand. She's Jenny, the girl who does this stuff. And it's about standing out and being different. And it works. People engage. Another one, which is Intel, which is quite corporate, quite restrictive in what they allow you to do. But again, Intel are starting to do this kind of stuff based on what we've trained them on. So I'm going to leave advertising behind and just going to look at some search stuff, which is probably what everybody gets more excited about, to be honest. So Greg shared some of the survey information that we did last year, and we're doing a survey again at the moment. In fact, I might share that link with you later if you would all respond to it. It'd be fantastic. But we looked at based on survey information, but actually this is particularly based on, we have a Chrome extension that we have placed onto almost 3,000 recruiters' desktops. And what it gives us is a large amount of data on what actually recruiters are doing on a day-to-day basis. So what we found, weirdly, at first we thought, but then we thought, no, this makes sense. We found that low-performing recruiters, and I'll tell you how we know they're low-performing in a second, but low-performing recruiters do far, far more searches than high-performing recruiters. Which seems strange, but here's the reason why. And I'll tell you how we know they're low-performing. So we asked 4 companies in the UK to tell us who their top performers were and who are their bottom performers. We didn't worry too much about the people in the middle. But they told us, here are our top performers, here are bottom performers. And we were able to correlate their activity based using this Chrome extension to see what they're actually doing all day, to see that low performers, almost 65 or 65% more searches per day. So why do you think they're doing that? If you think about it, right, they're searching without a clear intent. They're searching without good skills, and what happens is they go around in circles. They search for 2 minutes, they don't find who they were looking for, they search again, they search again, they search again, and they end up with 16 searches per day. Whereas the high performers, and very closely followed by the medium performers, do a fewer amount of searches. They take their time before they embark on a search. They think about who they need to find. They'll think about different names and skills that they might be looking for, and as a result, they do far fewer searches, which is ultimately a good thing, because once they find the people and they're focused, then they're getting on to contacting them, which is another challenge. So, does anybody know what these are? Aubergines. Anybody know what else they might be called? Eggplants. Okay, so one of the big things that we train people on is just to stand back and think about, well, look, if somebody is called a head of sales, what else could indicate that they have the same skills that you're looking for? If somebody's called a head of business development, pretty much the same thing, right? If they're called a VP of sales, a VP of business development, a BDM, BDE, there's so many different names for any given job title or any given skill. So the aubergine and eggplant example is to make you stop and think, you know what, if I search on LinkedIn or any given social network, am I finding everybody? Is LinkedIn or is Google intelligent enough to offer me up alternative people for this this search, or am I just going to get the exact results for what I put in? Currently, and LinkedIn is about to change soon actually, but currently it'll spit back pretty much what you put in. So if you put in sales, you'll find people with sales in their job titles or in their keywords. If you put in sales, business development, you'll get business development, but you won't get both. And what happens is you miss out on those people. And Greg and the guys were talking about how do you find those people that nobody else is finding, and why are they not popping up in my search? And I'm going to just give you a few blunt examples of why this stuff matters, and it really matters. But I'll give you a couple of. I'm going to use an illustrative job here of how we would search for a .NET developer with SQL, Agile, and based in Brno. So let's have a look at this. So if I put in a pretty basic search with just those keywords, SQL, Agile, .NET developer, and Brno, we get 3 results. Not great results on LinkedIn. But if we stand back and think about it a little bit differently, or sorry, before I go on to that, one of the issues with this, and it's a blunt illustration, but if I look at engineers in Brno, we get 1943 results. The thing is, we also need to think about, well, I should search for the check word for engineer, and I'll get another 90 results. I also should look for misspellings of engineer, and in this case, I only get 1 result. But you wouldn't have found Rosario without misspelling the word. And the thing is, you'll find this across the board. Like engineer, if you look on the web without specifying Brno, you'll find about 300,000 engineers. There's about 500,000 engineers. It's endless. The amount of misspellings and incorrect or abbreviations of job titles is huge. But that's just one aspect. The other aspect is looking for alternate keywords of what else they might be called. But one of the big ones is manger. There's a lot of mangers out there in the world. 178 mangers in Brno. And the thing is, you won't find mangers, and they might not be great at spelling, but they could be the best manger in the world. So we've got to think about how do we find all of these different people. And the result is currently creating large Boolean strings. Who uses Boolean? Okay, so good 30% of people. And you end up with this kind of matrix type situation. Yeah? Okay, nodding heads. So this is a bit daunting, and it looks like a lot of work. But all it is an extrapolation of what I was saying about the eggplant or aubergine. It's just saying, right, .NET could also be ASP or .NET written differently, or C# or C++ or ASP.NET, etc., etc. It's just trying to think about how people might have put a particular skill down on the web. Bearing in mind, they weren't doing it with you in mind. They weren't doing it with them looking for you to find them. They might have. So that's challenging. So what we've done, and this is a free tool, so I'm not trying to sell it to you, but what we've done is we've created a shortcut to help you with this. It's called SourceHub. You can sign up for free on our website, source.socialtalent.co, so source.socialtalent.co. And what it does is it takes the pain out of creating Boolean strings and also eliminates the errors that you might make when you're typing something as long as that. So if we put in .NET Developer, SQL, Agile, and Brno, you end up with your Boolean string. You can play around with it with advanced search and so on. But then we take it a step further and allow you just to click on the LinkedIn button and these other social networks and job boards that you see here. But let's just have a look on LinkedIn. So we got 17 results for Brno for our initial search. If you remember, we had three results in our initial search. So based on that, we've gone to almost a 6-fold number of results, which is a good return, and you're finding more people. That presents a challenge as well, because if you start to find hundreds of people for a particular job, it's too many. So what we're trying to do is give you control of the data. You're starting to control the data, which allows you then to maybe add that perfect keyword that strips them away. So you might say, well, we always hire from I was talking to somebody from Foxconn earlier. We always get good people from Foxconn. So maybe I'll add the word Foxconn on into the search, and then I get all these people with these skill sets, but also work for Foxconn, and you can do that with the LinkedIn filters as well. But it's about controlling the information and controlling the data. So if we then start to look beyond LinkedIn for this particular job, and look on somewhere like Stack Overflow, and Yuri mentioned this earlier, but you get 485 results on Stack Overflow. So it's not just about limiting your search to LinkedIn, it's about looking beyond LinkedIn. Looking on Stack Overflow, looking on Google, where you'll find people who have published their CV on the web, or have their own personal websites and so on. But also things like GitHub, and I'll dig a bit deeper into GitHub. But on GitHub, you get 71 results in Brno for GitHub. So I'm going to show you some profiles on GitHub and how nice the people on GitHub are. So these are developers, and they give you their, if you can see here, a lot of them will give you their email address. They'll also give you a bit of information about, you can start to judge whether they're good developers or bad developers based on the number of people who follow them, how many repositories they've contributed to, and so on. And if you don't recruit developers, this isn't all that relevant. But the thing is, it's about looking in different places. And if you're looking for engineers, well, where do the engineers hang out? If you're looking for salespeople, where do salespeople hang out? And getting comfortable in your niche and at being able to explore different resources. So Vaultek gives us his email. Jan gives us his email. Thank you, Jan. Lucas gives us his email. Oh, leave him alone. So David doesn't give us his email. So what would people normally here do if you don't have his email address? What's next step? Any ideas? What? Source code? Yeah, you've seen it. Okay, well, I'll show it to you in a second. But typically what people do is they go to, by the way, I love this picture, which was accidental. I only noticed it afterwards. But I love that every recruiter hopes I'm well. It's just perfect. How many people, I've certainly written it 100 times, hope you're well. But typically what people do is they'll go into LinkedIn, they'll find his profile on LinkedIn, then they'll do the usual and send a message like this. Hi, David, I found your profile on LinkedIn, and I was wondering if you're interested in the following job. Bang. Let me know if you're interested, Vincent. I have done that in the past, and I learned from it because it's just crap. But that's what a lot of recruiters do. They spam people. They're sending this type of messages. And I've often seen people sending, hi, XXX. You can see that they've superimposed this templated message to somebody, and they've done it hundreds of times. And it's lazy and it's poor. So I'm going to look at how we might approach that. So, and we know from our data, and I'll show it again, and Greg showed it earlier on, but connection requests receive the lowest response rates by passive candidates. So let's look at a different way. But first, and this is pure coincidence, but look what he wrote on his, when we were creating this, we just picked him, and then afterwards read this. Hi there, recruiters. I just wanted you to know that I'm not going to respond to your generic connection requests and job offers. Try to be a little more creative. Maybe find out a little bit more about my profile says. Sure, it's loaded with keywords you like, but we're humans, right? I won't promise you cookies, and it will probably be really hard to convince me to work for your company, but we can still exchange kind words. Who knows, you maybe even get me to an interview in the end. How class is that? And that summarizes, I think, all of these high demand people. It's not that they're ignorant and don't want to talk to you or want to be rude to you or mean to you, but they're being bombarded. And if you're going to be one of the same and spam them, they're just going to ignore you. So let's think about how we might approach David differently, given he's given us this information as well. So I'm going to look at a little hack for GitHub. So if you want to take note of that, you might want it in a second. If any of you recruit for developers, you might want to take that down. But it's a useful hack. I'll show it to you now. So when we go to that link, this is what you'll see. These little blank page with some parentheses. And if you look up top, Johnny Campbell is the username that we're looking at. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to David's GitHub profile, get his username, David-Sabata. We're going to replace his name, Johnny's name, with his name, and we get this code, so this gobbledygook, which I have no idea what it all is. But what I do know is that if you search for the @ symbol, press Control and F, and you get your @ symbol. So we're just going to search for the @ symbol, and bang, there's his email address in the back end of GitHub. Now, this is one kind of quick trick, and there's these types of things for lots of networks, and different ways that you can find people's email addresses and contact details, which are out there. But what it does is it means everybody's contactable. But then what are you going to do with that? And here's an example. If you are going to email somebody, I would propose that a phone call is better. But here's the type of email that you might want to send to David. First of all, make the subject line in language that he appreciates. Because most people say, interesting job offer, or something along that means a lot to us maybe, but it doesn't mean a whole lot to him. So think about the candidate, have the candidate in mind all the time. And in fact, we have a little golden rule on our desks, even for when we're doing presentations and demoing to customers, is that try and use the words you, yours, and your as much as possible. So you, yours, and your. If you ever try and have a conversation where you just say you, yours, your, it forces you to think from the other person's perspective. It forces you to think about them and not about yourself. So think about that when you're messaging David or any developer or whatever the industry is. So GitHub.net fork. So I'm told, is when their code is used by other coders. It's called forking. So here's my message. You're probably wondering how a recruiter like me got your email address. Well, I stumbled upon your repo on ASP.net, and it's fairly obvious to me that you know your stuff. Seriously, 112 forks. Wow. I just had to talk to you, so I hope you don't mind, but I hacked your API code to discover your email address. That's how much I want to talk to you. Can you spare 5 minutes to hear me out if I call you this evening? I promise to show you the GitHub hack. You'll like it. So, do you think he's more likely to respond to that than the generic LinkedIn message? Probably is. It might not be perfect, but it's a lot better than your generic message. So you got to think about how you message them. Then we use a little bit of technology to think further about that. So anybody here using Sidekick? Few Sidekick users. Well, Sidekick is a product from HubSpot, and it's called GetSidekick.com. And what it does is it tracks. I'm going to use a better example than that, actually. Let me go to my actual email. So I'm going to use my. You see that? Yeah. Okay. So this is my email. So what it does is it tracks your emails when you send it to candidates or clients. This is a proposal. For opened in Japan. Okay, it's been opened 73 times. So it was a proposal that I sent to a client. They purchased this morning, actually. Somebody texted me, but they purchased this morning. So what would you say somebody opening my proposal 73 times might be an indication of? That they're sharing it around the organization, that they're interested. So when I go to follow up, I'm more likely to, well, there's an invoice, but I'm more likely to follow up with people who are opening my email or my information multiple times, because I know they're hot to trot. If they have opened it once, it might be an indication that, yeah, they opened it, discarded it, and I have to take a different strategy for them. And it's the same when it comes to candidates. If you send 50 messages to candidates, well, where do you go next? You sit back and you go, okay, I need to follow up with these people. Where do I go to? So if you've got 50 and 10 of them are opening your email repeatedly, well, it's probably a good place to start, because they're the ones who seem to have interest. They've clicked on links in your email, and it tells you that as well. But it also tells you where they've opened it. Has it been shared? They might have shared it with some of their colleagues. But if you can see here, it actually tells me that it's been opened in Japan, in Ireland, in Istanbul. It's just good information. But that's called Sidekick from HubSpot. Let me just go back to my presentation. So it's a useful tool. But there are lots of tools like that are just really useful at gaining some efficiency in what you're doing. So, other things, has anybody heard of Profit? Because one of the things about approaching anybody is using the information to connect with them, to talk to them, that you can find on the web. Has anybody heard of Profit? Okay, so there's a few hardcore people who've heard of most of these things. But Profit it's up here, pop out there. Profit is there's a number of these tools. There's 360 Social and a few others. But what it does is it takes one social profile and it uses that information to find information about that person in other social networks. So in David's case, it's found his not much beyond his LinkedIn address, or LinkedIn profile, which we have, but his website. So we find some information about him. A better illustration is Johnny, who's hyperactive on social networks. So based on his LinkedIn profile for Johnny, it's suggesting phone numbers, all of which happen to be correct, 5 potential emails, and one that says he's a member of U2, which he thinks he might be, but no, so that's an incorrect one. But it gives you suggested emails. It also will give you his Facebook page, his Foursquare page, his Instagram. So it's searching the web to find additional information about somebody. And what that helps you to do is when you engage with them, you can think, well, are they into football or into rugby? What information can I use to make my messaging more personal to them? You don't want to freak them out by talking about their holiday photos and that they look good in bikinis or whatever it might be. You got to be careful that you don't invade their personal space, but at the same time, it's very, very useful information to try and build a rapport with the candidate and ultimately, form a relationship of some sort. So, this is the slide that Greg showed earlier. But how are recruiters reaching out to passive candidates? So, I won't labor on it because Greg's talked about it already. But the worrying thing is recruiters hide behind these methods. And okay, we utilize email a fair bit and show you how to use it and how best to use it. But this one, which is scarily at 6%, should be the number one source of method. And the additional bit of information that we had was the response rates by medium. So let me just show you these. So we asked recruiters from our survey, well, so 6% of you are using, this is the good response rate. So 50% of recruiters say they get a good response rate from the phone. Only 26% get a good response rate from email, 22% from in-mails, and 22% from connections. And nobody gets a bad response rate, which is less than 10% from phone calls. So the crazy thing is, only 6% are doing this, but everybody knows it's the best way of doing it. So the question is why? I guess it's because we've lost touch with what it is to really recruit, and we need to get back to that. So it's good to have the geeky hacks for GitHub and so on, but getting back to actually selling and engaging with candidates online or in person is crucial, because it just works. It's faster, it's better. So a couple of things around what is the best time of day to call, because one thing is calling, but when do you call somebody? Does anybody know when the best time of day is to call somebody? Evening? Afternoon? I'll help you. So first thing is first thing in the morning, before their heads have been filled with all the things that they have to do. They're relatively fresh and they have an open mind. So it's been repeated studies have found that first thing in the morning is the best time to make your phone calls. And in fact, first thing in the morning is the best time to do most of your recruitment work. The top performing recruiters, again, from what we found, is that they do their searching in the afternoon. Because people in the afternoon don't want to talk as much. What are you doing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon as an individual? What are you thinking about? Shy crowd. But you're thinking about going home. You don't want to call. You're busy. You're trying to get stuff done before you get out the door. So good recruiters tend to do their phone calls first thing in the morning. What is the best time of day to send an email? To get it opened, when the highest response rates are. It's not a massive difference, by the way, but we're talking about making yourself marginally better all the time. But what are we all doing at this time? That's the optimal rate. But soon after that, when there's little or no competition for our email, who here wakes up to their mobile phone in the morning, or who has an alarm clock? But like, who sets their alarm on their phone? And then the rest have babies, right? But so 6 a.m. is statistically, this isn't us making it up. This is Yesware did a survey of millions of emails, and they found, and again, it's not a massive difference, but it gives you a slight competitive edge. Now, we're not saying you have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to send your emails. You can time your emails from Outlook. There's tools like Boomerang on Gmail which allow you to time your emails, but it makes a difference in terms of the response rates you get. And all of these things compound on each other to make sure that you get higher response rates. But first thing in the morning, 6 a.m., you have limited competition for your email. It's not like you're one of 50 emails. You're probably one of 2 emails that's coming in at that time. So you're top of the list. And everybody does this when they wake up. Well, I do anyway. You turn off the alarm, snooze for a couple of minutes, and then you start looking at your mail because there's those red dots that you just have to get rid of. And you're looking at your Facebook and Twitter and so on. But you do check your work email. And if there's one there at the top of the pile, you have a stronger chance of getting a response than if you set it at 3 o'clock when they're trying to get out the door. So these small things make a difference. In the evening at about 8 p.m. is also a good time. Sunday, by the way, Sunday at 8 p.m. is also a very, very good time because people are starting to think about work, starting to going back to work, maybe dreading it, and it's a good time to catch people. There's low volume of emails, work emails. So Greg talked earlier about finding phone numbers. So just going to, and people do have that. I don't want to. How would I find their phone numbers? I don't want to do it, and there's an aversion to doing it. But it's the easiest thing in the world. Google Maps is the best phone book out there. It's got phone numbers of almost every business that you care to mention. Certainly, if you're going to be hiring from them, they're on Google Maps. So it's as simple as go to Google Maps, Social Talent Dublin, or any company you care to mention, and bang, you'll get a phone number. So it's just as simple as finding a number like that. So then you have an obstacle of getting past gatekeepers and so on, but that's part of what makes you a recruiter, and then you engage with your candidate. So getting to that point, surely people don't want to be cold called at work about a job, and Greg has talked about this already, and I'm reiterating it a little bit, but hopefully being told it twice helps. But what's the purpose of your pitch? Greg said it already. It's not to sell to them on the spot. Typically, it's to try and engage with them to get another call. It's trying to arrange a meeting, try to elicit some, get them interested without actually selling. And there's ways and means of doing that, and I won't go into too much. But you're not trying to hit the home run in one go. So there's been surveys done, and we did some surveys on this as well. But we asked people, well, how many interactions does it take to close a candidate? What I mean by closing a candidate is how many times do you actually engage with somebody before they say, yes, I'm interested in pursuing the opportunity? So we asked how many that is. Any guesses as to what the average is? The amount of times you actually have conversations, meetings before a candidate goes, yeah, there's my CV, let's go ahead. 3, 4, 5. So the average we found was 4. The interesting thing is, we then asked the question, how many engagements does it take with a woman, and how many does it take with a man? So, 8 for a woman, 2 for a man. Which is probably sad about men that we're very shallow beasts. I think that's the problem. I think women are probably better on this front for sure. So it varies based on who you're talking to, where they are, what gender they are. There's lots of different things. You've got to think about your market and think about, and it also varies by your job. So who exactly are you talking to? Some people are going to be harder to engage with, like Java developers who are getting a lot of traction from recruiters. So we've got to think about this in terms of how we engage with them and how we start to build a relationship, and not to expect that they're going to give us a CV after one interaction. So persistence is important. So Greg talked about this earlier as well, so I won't labor on it. But these are 2 people who work for LinkedIn in Dublin. Who would you respond to quicker? it's kind of an obvious question. You know, it's not a terribly difficult one. But having your personal brand and being seen as an authority, somebody who can speak to a developer or an engineer, whatever it might be, somebody that looks and feels the part is very important. We all make very, very quick snap decisions about who we'll talk to, who we won't talk to. Again, Greg talked about social. Well, I'll talk about it again in a second. But we have become very, very used to engaging with companies based on referrals from other people. If you think about things like eBay, Amazon, TripAdvisor, we all take social referrals from people we don't know, and it's the same with our LinkedIn network. The people actually, I prefer the next slide. People with greater than 2,000 connections are almost 10, this is LinkedIn data, by the way. They're 10 times more likely to have, poorly networked people are 10 times more likely to have low response rates. So having a poor network gets you a far, far, far reduced number of responses to LinkedIn emails in this case. So this comes from LinkedIn's data. So thinking about building a network and why you would bother, it's hugely important, but it's also going back to the science of it. People have probably heard of Cialdini's 6 principles of influence, but the things we focus on are social proof, liking, authority. So how do you build authority online? How do you make yourself that person that everybody wants to talk to? You know, we have a pub culture in Ireland, if people weren't aware. Although I have learned a couple of things since I've been here. There's 3 things I've never seen at a recruitment conference in Ireland or the UK. First thing is beer. Never, ever. Weirdly, because we drink beer. I've also never seen a baby, so congrats to whoever brought the baby. It's fantastic. I love it. And the third thing is a dog. Somebody had a dog in their handbag. I was going, this is brilliant. So good stuff. But the thing is, in a pub, there's always people who people gravitate towards, and it's because they're seen, for some reason they have a special X factor or whatever it might be. But they build that. They worked on that. They worked on the confidence. And we need to build personal brands online. We need to build our authority. We need to build connections with people who the candidates we're reaching out to will appreciate the fact that we're connected with them. We make very, very, very snap decisions about who we'll respond to and who we won't. But if you're reaching out to a Java developer and you're already connected to lots of other Java developers who are saying good things about you, it just improves your chances. And that's what we're after. We're after incremental small gains that get you a higher response rate. I think I've made this point. So this is what the outbound recruitment funnel looks like. Typically, this is what we've found when we've talked to recruiters and surveyed them. So to get one offer, they need to get 4 submissions. I'm going to count it backwards. But to get 4 submissions, typically they need to get about 20 candidate responses. To get 20 candidate responses, they need to contact about 100 candidates. And they typically look and find about 500 people. That's a lot of work. That's a huge amount of work. And it's a slow process. Finding 500 people is like, particularly when they're not even out there, it's difficult. So you might only find 100, which means you're very, very lucky to get a hire. So what we try to do in Social Talent is make people into ninjas, as I've mentioned, and we get the same number of submissions, same number of candidate responses, but what we try and do is refine our search so dramatically. Come back to me. Sorry, 1 second. So we try and refine our search and find the perfect people. And it takes time to get up to that level, but the thing is, it'll save you massive time over the long run, where you end up just finding, sorry about this, come on. What are the chances I go past it again? Okay, stop now. Stop. Stop. If it goes on, we'll forget it, right? Oh, look, thanks. So we look at getting 20 responses, and we want we want them to be almost the perfect 20. We allow our sourcing ninjas one error in their search, but we want out of 20, you want to be contacting 19 of them, because you've honed your search, it's perfect, and you found your top 20 people, and you want to be contacting 19. You want to get your introduction so perfect that you end up with 15 candidate responses, of which not all of them are going to say yes, but you're going to have a conversation with them in some way or other. And from that, you're going to get 4 submissions. By the way, the 4 submissions might not be from this group. They might be referrals because you've built a relationship with somebody and they say, well, I'm not right, but here's somebody who is. But that's the kind of metrics we're after. And it's actually what we're starting to see amongst the teams that we've trained. So that's pretty much it. I'm just going to show you a couple of examples of people who it's not just us talking about it, but particularly this one. This is Alexander Mann Solutions. I don't think they have any offices here, but they're a big RPO provider in the UK. They have offices in the US and sourcing centers in Poland. But they came back to us and said they trained 400 people in one group and left 400 people untrained in another similar group. And they saw a 31% increase in their recruiter productivity. I don't want to start selling, but the thing is, that's the kind of uplift in performance that they've seen. It's almost so high you get a little bit worried about it. But they saw a massive spike in people their performance versus their core KPIs, which is essentially provision of candidates to their shortlist. So look, we have ninjas all over the world. If anybody cares to join them, please let us know. All right, thanks guys. Any questions?